And I don't turn red very often, but I think I did a little bit. We'll open the hearing on Senate Bill 453. And the first proponent I have is Linda Mowbray with the Kansas Care Association and Kansas Center for Assisted Living. Oh, wait a minute. Forget it, Linda. I lied. This is what happens when I come in a hurry and don't have time to breathe. First, we're going to have our reviser, Scott Abbott, go over the bill. Then we will have you, our first proponent.
But be ready. Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, members of the committee. Senate Bill 453 comes to you from the Senate Committee on Public Health and Welfare. The bill would amend current law relating to unlicensed employees who work in adult care homes. The bill would update terminology throughout the statutes to refer to them as certified aides as opposed to the current terminology of unlicensed employees of adult care homes. The substance of the bill is found on pages 2 going on to page 3. The first is at the top of page 2, that new paragraph A, requiring that each instructor of a training course for certified aides working in adult care homes be a licensed and in good standing registered professional nurse or licensed practical nurse, including a nurse who has interstate licensure privilege to practice in the state of Kansas. The second change begins on the bottom of page 2 and continues on to page 3, requiring certified aides to complete or to demonstrate competency in a list of skills identified by the Secretary for Aging and Disability Services. The demonstration must be evaluated by a registered professional nurse licensed and in good standing in this state, including someone who has interstate licensure privilege in the state of Kansas. Additionally, that nurse must have at least 1 year of licensed nurse experience providing care for the elderly or chronically ill in a healthcare setting. The bill also makes some technical adjustments to language and cross-references to accommodate those changes, and the bill will take effect upon publication in the statute book.
All right, committee, are there questions for Reviser Abbott? All right, seeing none, once again, great explanation. Everybody understands the bill. Now I will recognize Linda Mowbray with the Kansas Healthcare Association and Kansas Center for Assisted Living, President/CEO. Welcome to committee, Linda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. President, person of the day. I am Linda Mowbray, Kansas Health. That need care.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you once again. Besides that, is everyone, because of the list of conferees we got today and we want to be able to ask questions, we're going to try to limit everyone to at 3 minutes.
Yep.
So sorry about that.
Absolutely fine. I'm here today to ask you to support Senate Bill 453. This bill is a sound piece of legislation that helps line Kansas up with federal law. Now, Kansas law requires 90 hours of training for a certified nurse aide. That's more than the federal, and that's a good thing. The federal statute for the certified nurse aide allows an RN to be an RN, and that means he or she has a large scope of practice. They're controlled by their state board of nursing. And in the state of Kansas, they have the ability to delegate tasks to others. This bill basically puts us in line with the federal regulations to where a registered nurse could delegate the task of instructing a class to an LPN and then opening the pipeline for more students. How does it open the pipeline? Right now, a registered nurse has to be the instructor of record of the class. They also have to teach the class, and they have to do the skills checkoff. Two of those things wouldn't change. They would still be the instructor of record, and they would still do the skills checkoff list, but they would be able to delegate the teaching portion to an LPN. Right now, an RN can instruct 10 CNA students. If you're to pass this piece of legislation and the nurse, the registered nurse, was comfortable supervising more than one LPN, they would be able to expand and multiply the amount of students. So right now, 1 RN, 10 students. If this is to pass, 1 RN, maybe supervising 5 LPNs. All of a sudden, we have 50 students. This is a tremendous way to increase the number of individuals in the pipeline without diluting, without taking away anything from our registered nurses. They still have the ability. In our long-term care settings, if you'll look on the back of my testimony, you can see that the hours, as recorded on the cost report, have said that our LPNs and RNs are about the same amount. Those LPNs are doing the work and are supervising. Let them teach the CNAs that they supervise. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Linda. We'll take questions after we have all the conferees. Thank you very much. Next, I have Sean Sullivan, President and CEO of Midland Care Connection. Welcome to committee, Sean.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you all for the opportunity to testify. I'll be quick since Linda gave a great overview as to the reviser. So I'm with Midland Care. We provide community-based services to approximately 1,800 folks in Northeast Kansas. We do that through home health, hospice, PACE, Meals on Wheels, palliative care, and other programs. So we are a community-based provider. We're not an adult care home, but we do need and employ lots of CNAs or aides or home health aides, and our ability to take care of folks out in the community as an alternative to nursing homes is dependent on our ability to employ and retain those individuals. So currently we have about 100 aides that we employ, or we have budgeted. We have about a 30% vacancy rate. Our ability to take care of those people in the community currently is significantly limited by our ability to hire aides and nurses both. And we've had to slow down our enrollment and really put a somewhat of a soft or artificial cap on our growth of our community-based programs. I think we all, what you'd hear from most providers is we all are trying to do a much better job over the last couple of years, considering the workforce crisis that we're all facing. We all are offering higher wages and benefits. We're all offering, to the most part, different compensation initiatives. We're all trying to be better employers and offer a better culture, but that alone is not enough. We need more workers. We need more aides. We need more people coming in the front door to help us. I would say that Senate Bill 453 is not a magic bullet, but it does help ease the problem. It does hopefully make things better. Also want to note that 453 is not a mandate. If colleges or anybody that teaches courses does not want to use LPNs or wants to continue to meet the current Kansas regs, they can continue to do that. But those colleges or tech colleges or others that would like the flexibility and need it in order to find instructors would be able to do this under this legislation. Sitting through the Public Health and Welfare Committee and listening to testimony a couple of weeks ago, there seemed to be a couple of main objections to 453, at least for what is still in the bill after amendments. The first is that this would weaken training standards, and the second is through that this would impact quality of care provided. And as I've thought about that, I think I would ask not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good in this situation. So we have the potential, probably what some would say be the perfect, of having RNs teach all CNA courses with very long tenured RNs. In this situation, though, there just are not enough of them to teach the number of CNAs for which there is demand. So for us, that need more people coming in to help us work alongside colleagues of CNAs to care for the people that we care for, we need more people coming in the front door, and we think that 453 helps us do that. So I would ask for your support. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate that. Next, I have Robert Miller, Senior Vice President, Company Development, Comfort Care Homes, and Comfort Keepers of Wichita. Welcome to committee.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and the committee. Thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Robert Miller. I am the Senior Vice President of Company Development for Comfort Care Homes. I'm a licensed mastered social worker, and I have experience working not only in hospital settings, but also in home health, hospice, and now long-term care settings and assisted living. Comfort Care Homes operates 11 homes between Wichita and Newton. These are mostly home pluses and residential cares, serving about 120 residents, employing about 130 people top to bottom, and 95% of that at least are care staff. I get to see the rewards and rejections, the sweat, the tears, the moments of joy that these care staff create every single day. We care for people with dementia, Alzheimer's in particular, for stages that some people just can't manage it at home any longer. We guide families through the struggle to figure out what to do next, when is a good time. No simple task for Kansans, just trying to do the right thing for their loved one. Imagine trying to focus in and do this kind of care when you have 30 holes in your weekly schedule at the height of COVID. Then imagine my frustration and awe when I hear that WSU Tech in our community had to turn away 200 students in the fall of 2021. Then because of a lack of, and that was not because of a lack of scholarships or people applying, it was because they didn't meet or have enough qualified instructors under the current state definition of a course instructor. And then another 300 students were turned away in January. This is just in the Wichita area. In a time when we are begging for people to come to work in this very difficult and scary time of our history and in this industry. So they are the most important person in our work that we do every day. And many of them are turning to other forms of employment when we have the opportunity to really get them in and get them going. I don't get the choice. Comfort Care Homes does not get the choice. We truly are 24/7 care. We have to have these individuals to care for the massive amount of residents that we take care of in a year. These individuals are entrusted care that sometimes just cannot be provided at home anymore. They need presence, they need physical care, they need family feeling that they have peace of mind in the care that's being provided. In order for us to do that, we need to fill the gaps in that schedule. And that's just not been something we've been able to do in the last 2 years. This is something that's very important because we do believe, again, it will open the pipeline and allow us to bring those 500 possible students. We could have had them in May. Now, hopefully, we can have them in the next 6 months. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Cherie Utish, if I probably butchered that name, that's on the line with us. Hello, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. I'm Sherry Utash. I'm president of WSU Tech and vice president for workforce development at Wichita State University. You've heard from our providers, and so I'll give you a little bit of an educational perspective that goes along with those providers. At WSU Tech, along with other institutions across the state, we have seen the desperate need for CNAs, and we understand the difficulty increasing our number of candidates due to the limitations, the current limitations on who can teach CNA classes. In education, we are always working with our business and industry partners to help them create a talent pipeline. We believe that 453 gives us the latitude to help assist our partners in business and industry and create this critical workforce need to care for our elderly. I also would just include that there are other states that have adopted a similar approach in their legislation on this. Oklahoma, the state of Oklahoma since 2002, the state of Texas since 2018, the state of Colorado since 2007, and the state of Arkansas since 2020. So we would ask for your support on this because we believe that with the ability to have this kind of latitude, that we can increase the number of qualified care providers for CNA level across Wichita and across the state of Kansas. And we know that they are the backbone of long-term health services in our state. And we also know, and we're very committed from an educational standpoint, to make sure that we have a stable, well-trained workforce in this area. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Andrew Wiens, Vice President of Governmental Relations, Wichita Regional Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to committee, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Happy birthday, Madam Chair.
Thank you. That's extra bonus points.
Yeah, thank you. It takes a lot of lung power to blow out 33 candles on a cake, so I hope you can do it. Extra bonus points, yeah. Members of the committee, thanks for having me here today. All the good stuff I think has already been said by other proponents, but I will make a couple of brief points before you move on. if you have my written testimony, you can see what Senate Bill 453 accomplishes and what it does not do. I think a couple things bear reiterating. One is that this is not a mandate. If educational institutions want to continue hiring RNs as instructors, they are certainly welcome to do that. And then more broadly and from a high level, you heard from Robert Miller with Comfort Care Homes as well as Dr. Utash with WSU Tech. They came to us in the summer of 2021 and talked about the shortage of instructors and not being able to find instructors to teach 200 interested CNA students. At the same time, we had Comfort Care Homes saying they're going to have to close some facilities because they could not find enough CNAs. And those two things paired together, you know, it's heartbreaking that we have people who want to become CNAs but not enough instructors, and the impact that it'll have on residents in our long-term care facilities. So we started engaging directly on this issue. I will say from an even higher level, workforce has been a challenge for all of our members. I think businesses across the state. We think this is not a silver bullet even for the healthcare industry, but we think it's going to help. So I would encourage you to pass this. It is enacted in several other states already that LPNs are allowed to be instructors for CNAs. And so with that, I'm happy to take questions at the appropriate time. We think this legislation reduces unnecessary regulatory burdens, allows more folks to teach CNAs, and hopefully get more CNAs employed in our long-term care facilities and hospitals. So with that, I'll stand for questions at the appropriate time.
All right, thank you, Andrew. Next, I have Rachel Monger, Chief Advocacy Officer, Leading Age Kansas. Welcome to committee.
Thank you. Is it too late to get bonus points? Happy birthday.
Okay, you have an extra minute.
Oh, good. Rachel Monger with Leading Age Kansas. We are the state association for faith-based and nonprofit long-term care in the state of Kansas. We, of course, support this bill, and as you've heard over and over again, health care and long-term care in particular is in a horrendous workforce crisis with not much end in sight. If we want to continue to have long-term care in our state, we must find practical and immediate solutions for expanding nurse aid training in Kansas. CNAs are the backbone of long-term care and healthcare services in general in our state. CNA certification is a prerequisite for certified medication aides, home health aides, licensed practical nursing programs, and even many registered nursing programs in Kansas. Finding ways to increase the CNA training pipeline is an essential part of solving workforce issues across the entire healthcare spectrum. And I'm not going to repeat everything that came before me. I just want to highlight some of what we think are important points about this bill, which is other states are allowing LPN instructors, and you heard Dr. Utash mention Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, and Arkansas. The bill does not require anyone to use LPN instructors. It's optional flexibility for those who need it. Licensed practical nurses, LPNs, work as charge nurses in adult care homes all the time with no RN present. LPNs directly supervise certified nurse aides all the time, again with no RN present. CNAs provide basic assistance with daily living for residents, and LPNs are more than qualified to act as CNA instructors. LPNs can perform instruction under the general supervision of RN, just as they are allowed to do in other aspects of their job. This bill does not change current CNA training hours or curriculum, and all Kansas adult care homes will continue to be required to use CNAs to provide direct care to residents. All CNAs, no matter their instructor, will be required to receive the same training, pass the same exams, demonstrate the same competencies to a registered nurse with the same required professional experience. And we do also want to note that this bill does not extend or make permanent temporary aids as defined in House Bill 2477 that was passed earlier in the session. The intent of this bill is to expand training so we don't have to rely as much on emergency measures like temporary aids. So thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I'm happy to answer questions at the appropriate time.
All right, thank you, Rachel. Next, I have Heather Porter, Chief Clinical Officer, NMC Health. And you're coming in virtual, Heather?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the House Committee. On behalf of NMC Health, we appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony in support of Senate Bill 453. I'm Heather Porter. I'm a registered nurse and a Chief Clinical and Chief Nursing Officer at NMC Health, which is an acute care hospital. I thank you for your leadership and consideration of our comments. We all are aware that there is a significant nursing shortage that is only exacerbated due to the pandemic. Kansas is listed as one of 5 states with the highest concentration of nursing assistant jobs available, and Senate Bill 453 helps us have additional instructors and courses available to expand upon that number. This bill proposes that a registered professional nurse or a licensed practical nurse can serve as the instructor of the certified aide course. The bill also includes language that requires the registered nurse to be the one that completes the skills checkoff. This aligns very closely with how care is delegated in a hospital, a nursing home, and care facilities. Many times the RN and the LPN, they work together to meet the needs of the patient population that's assigned. A position statement on the delegation of specific nursing tasks in the school setting for Kansas is supported by the Kansas State Board of Nursing and the Kansas School Nurses Organization. In their position statements, they demonstrate how an LPN can be delegated tasks from an RN. The RN scope of practice aligns with the delivery of healthcare services, which requires assessment and nursing diagnosis. The LPN scope of practice allows the LPN to be assigned work by the RN in areas of observation, evaluation, and basic cares. The Kansas Department on Aging Certified Aide curriculum includes tasks that the certified aide has to be checked off on hand washing, use of disposable gloves, feeding techniques, bathing assistance, oral care, toileting, repositioning, and dressing assistance. These activities of daily living are certainly within the scope of an LPN. The Kansas State Nurse Practice Act clearly defines the practice of delegation and states the services of a registered professional nurse can be supplemented by an LPN, and SB 453 aligns with that application. This bill comes at a time when the healthcare industry is certainly in need of a stable and well-trained workforce. Certified aides are a critical part of that overall delivery of healthcare in communities across Kansas. This allows us to expand opportunities for those that are interested in joining the programs to be trained and ensure that there is a workforce for the future. It allows for greater flexibility. So for that, we ask for your support in Senate Bill 453, and I'm available for questions if and when you have them.
All right, thank you very much, Heather. I appreciate that. Next, I have Haley Ordoin. Did I do that right? I didn't.
You did. You did.
I'm getting there.
You get the bonus points this time.
Thank you. Kansas Adult Care Executives, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Yes, my name is Haley Ordoin. I am here on behalf of Kansas Adult Care Executives. We represent administrators and operators of senior living throughout the state of Kansas. I will not take your time reiterating everything that has already been stated. I will give you more so a few real-life case examples. In my experience, I'm very rural. My facility was licensed for 31 beds. You may have very many of those similar providers in your areas. And what this bill would do for us is oftentimes it's very hard for us to provide RNs that are not actively working, providing coverage, or already working on the floor. LPNs we have a little bit more leeway with. In my facility, we had about 2, maybe 3 RNs, including the director of nursing, but we had closer to 5, 6, sometimes 7 LPNs. So that would so much expand our workforce and not take away from patient care. And that's what we're really here all about. We're all here to expand the workforce, to meet the individuals where they're at, to try and provide even more services so that we can have those higher staffing ratios that we all want to provide. The goal is the same, to provide better care. Passage of this bill would allow the expansion of educators to be able to educate those individuals to provide that care. In the, I don't want to say hierarchy, but that's the best term I can kind of come up with, of knowledge and skill set in your facilities. You have the temporary aid, which we realize is temporary but very beneficial. Then your certified nurses aides, certified medication aides, licensed practical nurses, registered nurses, and then if any facility were to happen to have one, BSN. And so the LPN is already overseeing all these skill sets. It makes sense that they have this knowledge, they have the skill set. Why wouldn't they be allowed to teach? And expanding this also would allow what we have done in our facility and many others have done in theirs would be to take those temporary aides that we know are temporary, put them through the certified nurse aide course, and have a permanent staff that's a permanent solution, not a temporary fix. So thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time.
All right, thank you, Haley. Next, I have Shannon Lager, Executive VP and COO of Medical Lodges, Inc. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee. Medical Lodges, I'm Shannon Lager, Executive Vice President of Medical Lodges. I'm speaking on behalf of Medical Lodges, but also as a registered nurse in the state of Kansas. Medical Lodges is an employee-owned, Kansas-based company and a provider of long-term services. We provide that in a variety of settings across the state of Kansas and have done so for over 60 years. I graduated from Wichita State. I have a 20-year plus career in nursing. The last 20 years for sure has been in long-term services, and I can honestly say that this has been the most difficult period of time in our ability to hire and hire certified nursing aides. There are real-life implications for that for the people that we care for. Medical Lodges made an excruciating decision last fall with a rural Kansas facility where we had to relocate residents out of that location into another location in order to provide care and services for them that they needed and that they deserved. Very difficult decision, but we simply did not have enough staff. We did not have enough registered nurses, and we certainly did not have enough certified aides. We also find ourselves being selective about the individuals that we do admit into our care in our variety of settings because we have to be very concerned about the workforce crisis that we have and the availability of staff to care for those individuals. This has all been despite a variety of efforts that we have put forth to attract and hire individuals. We do have some of our own licensed nurses, registered nurses teaching courses. We have individuals that are willing to attend courses, but it's difficult to find training courses because it's difficult to find RNs to teach those courses. We employ 345 certified nurses aides as well as medication aides, and we currently have 80 plus vacant positions across the state of Kansas. That's approaching a 25% vacancy rate, so that does certainly affect our ability to care for individuals. Think for a moment where one registered nurse is now currently limited to supervising 10 students in a clinical rotation, that registered nurse could now oversee 5 LPNs who each have 10 students, and at the completion of that course with the LPNs, we can now graduate 50 certified nurse aides versus 10 certified nurse aides. That is a huge contribution. Where there is concern about the quality of training being compromised or diluted when taught by a licensed practical nurse, I'd ask that you keep in mind that there's nothing within that curricula for a certified nurse that is not within the scope of practice for a licensed practical nurse. So we could have many more certified nurse aides to provide care and services to those individuals that need it, require it, and deserve it. Thank you, and I'll take questions at the appropriate time.
All right, thank you very much, Shannon. Now, committee, was there anyone else that had signed up that I did not call your name to speak? All right, seeing none, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where?
I'm in opposition.
Right, okay. Yeah, so I've got 5 written onlys for proponents. And what I'm going to go ahead and do, committee, on this particular bill is we've got 2 opponents that are in person. We will hear from them, and then we will go into questions on the entire bill. So I have Kelly Summers, Director of Kansas State Nurses Association. Welcome to committee. You're getting to be a regular.
I kind of am, and I'm sorry. And I have a pinched nerve, so I'm not feeling great today, but I felt it was very important to show up in person. So, Madam Chair and committee, thank you for the opportunity to be here today, for me to be here today. I represent Kansas State Nurses Association, which is the largest nursing association in Kansas. We're the constituent members also of the ANA, and ANA is the largest nursing association, in the country. I myself am a BSN RN, and I have had multiple conversations with directors in all of the states, including the ones mentioned. I'm going to start shaking again, sorry. And I will say that the Kansas Nurse Practice Act is not the same Nurse Practice Act that's in other states right now. We have 56,000 RNs. We have a little less than 10,000 LPNs. But that's not the crux of this bill that I think we all should be paying attention to. There are 169 long-term care facilities that have severe deficiencies. So those 169 facilities can't be CNA education facilities unless they apply for a waiver through KDADS. And I think that's extremely important to understand because this bill is trying to create a new position with only 40 hours of training to do every single thing that a CNA does. Every single thing. And I did provide you a checklist of everything that a CNA does. And you can also see the one for a temporary nurse aide. Now, we know nothing about the accountability for this position. This is going to be a position that is going to extend to skilled care and is going to put our seniors at high risk of injury and death. The reason that I think what we need to understand is there's already a position in place with KDADS right now where you can hire a CNA that's a trainee that has 40 hours of experience, but it's being monitored by KDADS and they have to complete their CNA within 4 months. So there's a difference. This person is accountable. This new position, a certified aide, they're not certified. That's false advertising. That's false advertising to our seniors, and it's false advertising to their families right now. I think what we need to look at is that we're looking at cheap labor right now. 40 hours, they're not going to pay them the same as a CNA. A temporary nurse aide, they're not paying them the same as a CNA right now. And I think we could look at also, this is not new to COVID. These problems existed prior to COVID when it came to having the staff necessary in long-term care. And even the part where they talk about, oh, they can make more money at McDonald's, I hope I can say that, versus being a CNA, not a new argument because I supervised CNAs. I supervised home health aides, and I know the hard work that they do, but this isn't a new problem right now. And I think that we also need to look at right now what's been happening with the temporary nurse aide, because we're going to see that in this 40-hour position too, which is only a 12 hours additional training. And that's where we're going to see reports of abuse and neglect. And that was included in one of the other testimonies opposing this bill right now was a TNA that slapped a patient 5 to 6 times. What they were doing to provide care, skilled care, was ridiculous. And this went unreported until the CNA witnessed it, reported it, but it didn't go to KDADS, did it? No, you can look at this report. It required an agency nurse who a lot of people that have provided testimony have a lot of opposition to also, and they reported it. And that's how we have been able to find that record, which I know others exist too. So I just want to say, this is not the time to have unqualified care, uneducated care, substandard education moving forward to provide care for CNAs. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm happy to answer questions on the false information about giving LPNs the opportunity to be educators and the RNs to be on the sideline. Thank you, and I'll thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next, I have Mitzi McFatrich. Is that correct?
You're knocking it out of the park today.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you. Interim Executive Director, Kansas Advocates for Better Care.
Thank you, members of the committee, for allowing me to be here today and to address you about Senate Bill 453. I'm with Kansas Advocates for Better Care. For 45 years, we've been advocating for older adults who receive long-term care at home and in assisted living and in nursing facilities. We answer about 1,000 questions and reports each year from older adults and their families about problems they're having with care and how to navigate the care system. So we're very familiar with the concerns of older adults who use long-term care. Excuse me. I'm here to speak today to those end users, those older adults, those people who are your constituents, who are all of our loved ones, who are your neighbors and our friends. All of us in this room today are interested in fixing the workforce shortage problem. I don't attribute anybody to having anything but the best intentions to address the workforce shortage problem. Senate Bill 453 is a big step, but it's a big step in the wrong direction when we start thinking about the care that older adults need. Because basically we're talking about half the training from the people who are instructing the aides that are providing the hands-on care to the frail older adults and people with dementia. So when you look at the studies, they consistently say that people who have less training, the people who receive care from the people who have less training end up with poorer care. So if you're cutting in half the training that the person has who's providing the instruction to the CNA or the certified aide, then you're going to end up with half the competence for that trainee to draw upon. And the result of that is going to be poorer quality care for older adults who have already, unfortunately, borne the brunt of death and disease from the COVID pandemic. The federal government stepped in and allowed states to use temporary aides. Kansas took advantage of that. This is just one more step in a process to try to lessen the competence and the qualifications for aides. Aides who already are asking for more training to do a better job, aides who are asking for adequate pay to be able to support their families. And again, this isn't going to get us to the workforce that we need. It's not going to get us to the quality of care that older adults need and require and deserve. I think it's interesting when we talk about opening the pipeline. There are over 55,000 registered nurses. There are fewer than 10,000 LPNs. That's not an equation that opens the pipeline. We have enough registered nurses in the state. The community colleges in the Senate side of this testimony said they had the flexibility to be able to offer instructors to the geographic regions of the state who are having difficulty recruiting those folks. The Secretary of KDADS has the ability to be flexible in terms of granting waivers. So we've got workforce problems, yes. And you could take a step in the right direction by bringing together a group of expertise like is represented in this room, which was not a part of crafting this initial legislation. And let's look comprehensively at the workforce that we need and the reasonable, defined steps for how to get there. There are two other things that I want to point you to in my testimony because I know it's time for me to stop talking. There are two amendments that we would propose in any legislation that looks like this going forward. One of them has to do with the qualifications on a nurse license. This bill references in good standing. That's not it's not quantitative, and regulation has something very different, no pending or existing disciplinary actions. The multi-state nurse licensure references adverse actions on a nurse license. So without something that's very defined about what in good standing means, that won't help anybody who's trying to weed people out based upon disciplinary actions. And the second amendment would restore language that requires there to be a minimum of 2 people in the facility at any given time, and I believe that is a federal requirement when you talk about how many direct care staff have to be in a facility at any given time. And the technical language cleanup that was done on the first page, lines 21 and 26, remove it says person or persons, and they removed the or persons. So that also would definitely be a reduction in health and safety oversight for older adults. And thank you very much for the opportunity to testify today.
All right, thank you very much. Next, I have Vicki Geiber. Is that correct?
Gabar.
Huh?
Gabar.
Gabar. All right, welcome to committee. I notice you may live out somewhere close to Representative Barker. Is that correct?
I do. Yes, so thank you very much for having me. My name is Vicki Gabar, and my mother is a resident of a skilled care long-term nursing home in Abilene, Kansas. My mother has dementia and suffers from osteoporosis. In June of 2021, we had to place her in a nursing home because of a fall that had fractured her hip, and that was for healing. We were always hoping to bring her back home, but about 7-8 hours into the nursing home, she had another fall, severe break, another fracture in the right hip and also into the socket. I have the verbiage in my testimony, but the socket, the bone that holds the hip socket, again, laid up. And she basically, the very next day, because of her osteoporosis, they couldn't do surgery. She was back at the nursing home and bedbound, basically. Since that time, she has recuperated, and it's been a struggle. We've had 2 additional compression fractures, and just today I found out there's 3 more, and I have her scheduled for surgery on Friday. But proper handling of my mother and other very frail residents of nursing home is so important to keep them safe. I have a granddaughter who is 17 years old. She just completed her CNA, 90 hours of training in December. She is now a CNA, and she is working. She's doing her classes online for high school, to finish high school, and she's working a full-time job as a CNA. This little girl is transferring people, giving them baths, caring for them, and she had voiced to me that if she did not have the 90 hours, she does not feel she would have been equipped. So here we're now looking at creating the subcategory of 40 hours for a certified aide and versus a CNA. And I guess myself being a resident, not being a medical professional, but being a daughter and somebody who is in their 60s, and this could be me tomorrow if I have a fall. What kind of care and training do these people have that are going to be taking care of us? We had a very disturbing incident that occurred at the nursing home too. This just happened in January. We have cameras in her room, which is very beneficial, and it's a godsend, because with that, we've been able to identify when, not intentionally, but maybe somebody is maybe not understanding how to handle mom, or if there's problems, and we go in and we talk to the administration about it, and we'd work on fixes. But this particular day, I went into the nursing home and informed the CNA that my mother was scheduled for an MRI the next day because of compression fractures. And I was explaining to him about the 2 compression fractures, how important it is to be very careful with her, explained where they were, and went to see mom. Later on that evening, I was reviewing the camera footage. And just 30 minutes after I had left that nursing home, he was in there, and she had gotten up, and he was wanting to wheel her out. And she just wanted her hair combed, just wanted to look nice to go out into the dining area. But no, he did not want to have the time. No, Joyce, you're going. And he takes her under the arms and pulls her back. I just got done explaining the situation that she was in with her fractures. That wasn't it. Then she did not want to go. She goes, no, I can't go out. I can't go out there like this. He pops her wheelchair in a wheelie and wheels her out. And the scream that she gave from the pain that she felt. And then we're looking at limiting and minimizing the education that these CNAs, which I call them the heroes, the unsung heroes of the nursing home. So I guess what I am going to get down to is that we're relying on you to make for policies and procedures. My mom and all the individuals that are in nursing homes are counting on you for those policies and procedures that protect them and keep them from getting further harmed. Imagine the 17-year-old certified nurse's aide in charge of 8 people by herself. So please reconsider this bill, putting safety measures in and keeping your 90 hours. I can't identify, I've been trying to figure out what's the difference between your CA and a CNA. So and again, with Kristen's words, education was key. It's key to keep the residents safe, our elderlies, and to keep our CNAs safe so they can safely handle and transfer people. Thank you very much, and I am available for questions.
All right, thank you very much, Vicki, I appreciate it. Is there anyone that I did not call on that expected to testify as an opponent today? All right, committee, I do have 6 written onlys, and then we have 3 neutrals. And I guess, yeah, written only, the neutrals are, yeah. Scott, when I'm looking at this bill, it looks like to me that we're talking about maybe 2 different sets of 40 hours, but that's existing law for what?
So, Madam Chair, my understanding is this statute is what gives the agency, the Department for Aging and Disability Services, the authority to regulate what have been called certified nurse aides. The regulations that KDADS has adopted refer to nurse aides and medication aides, and they all cite this statute as their authority for adopting those regulations. So my understanding is that this statute establishes the baseline authority for KDADS to regulate those professionals or those unlicensed employees, as they're called currently in statute, in adult care homes, and all of that is current law. So the changes that this bill in particular would make, in addition to the change in terminology, are those 2 paragraphs that I pointed out on pages 2 going on to page 3. Everything else is existing law. The statute says 40 hours. I would note that the rules and regulations adopted by KDADS for nurse aides is currently 90 hours, 90-hour nurse aide course approved by the secretary. But otherwise, it is still relying upon this statute as their authority to regulate these individuals.
So if I read this correctly, Scott, we're not changing from the 90 hours. We're just changing who can actually give the instruction. Would that be correct?
Yes, Madam Chair. So as I said, the 90 hours is found in rules and regulations. I believe KDADS has interpreted that to impose their own higher standard than this minimum 40 hours that has been prescribed by statute. So the bill would not make any change to their authority to do that.
Okay, I think Kelly, would you mind stepping up? I just want to get some clarification before we open up here to questions.
Madam Chair, yes, I understand, yes.
Because I'm a little confused, because I think what I was hearing in the opponent testimony was that there would only be 40 hours of training. But what I'm hearing is the 40 hours mentioned in this bill is existing law.
No. The problem is that this is, what's an existing law is a CNA trainee. This position is being called a certified aide. It does not have the same title. Now, why do I know this? Because I communicated with Scott Brunner and Lacey, and I'm sorry, I forget her last name. I have been communicating with them. It is a new position. It is not an existing position.
Right.
So I just want to clarify on that piece.
No, I understand that piece of it. I know, I understand that.
Right.
What am I missing here, Scott?
Under KDADS, which isn't in this bill, is that there is a 40-hour position of a CNA trainee, but within 4 months, they're required to have their CNA. But in this bill, it doesn't say that. All it says in there is that they will have, kind of like what a registered nurse gets when we, do our continuing education credits to resume our license.
Okay, thank
So
you.
that's the difference.
All right.
Yeah.
Scott, are you able to speak on some of this for us, Brunner? You've worked with me long enough, maybe you can figure out the piece that I'm missing here. Because I'm confused between the 40 and the 90, the
I'll
CA and the CNA.
I will try. My name's Scott Brunner. I'm the Deputy Secretary for KDADS for hospitals and facilities, and regulation and licensure of CNAs is part of my portfolio. I think, so what the bill does is change existing law that talked about unlicensed staff that got 40 hours of training that was within the CNA to become a CNA as the path forward. CNA is defined in federal law and regulation as that direct care staff that can work in long-term care settings. So what the statute does and what we've done in regulation through KDADS is adopt the federal requirement to license a CNA, so that's the full 90-hour course. The first 40 hours of that is what's reflected in the current statute. What does seem to be confusing is in the current law, we talk about unlicensed staff as a way of designating aides that are working towards their CNA as being different than LPNs or other licensed categories that work in facilities. Changing that in this bill to certified aides does muddy the waters to some degree of what that initial position is, or what that position that somebody's working at after they've received 40 hours of training. It's true that with the CNA course has two components. When you complete part one, the 40 hours, there's a skills checklist, and you can begin working in a long-term care facility. But the expectation is that you're going to complete the full 90-hour training course and have another skills checklist that's completed and evaluated by a registered nurse to get that CNA designation. Calling that person working through their CNA a certified aide instead of unlicensed staff, I don't know that either term is that artful, but calling it a certified aide does make that more confusing, especially with other conversations that you've been having about temporary aides and nurse aides and other ways that just, again, that does muddy the water a little bit. But the bottom line is that the bill doesn't change that to be a certified nurse aide, you have to have 90 hours. That work has to be supervised. You've got to complete a skills checklist before you receive the designation of CNA to work in a long-term care facility.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
Going to wait until you tell me that I helped clarify what your question was, because I'm not sure I did.
I think that I'm following you. I'm going to see where the committee goes. Normally, I don't ask questions first, but yeah, I felt like there might be some confusion on this, so we need to get it better clarified.
And I tried to capture that in our neutral testimony, is to clarify what the current training requirements are for CNAs, but I think conferees on both sides accurately described what that training requirement is and how people become a CNA.
So then, are you saying then that if this new designation was to go into place, that these certified aides would only have 40 hours? Or would they have 90?
They would have 40 hours, and they could begin working as it was what we call a trainee one. But they would still need to complete the full CNA course to become a CNA and receive that designation within 4 months of completion.
They wanted to stay a certified aide. Can they do that then?
We would review they wouldn't be able to pass that 4 month. If they stop working towards their CNA, the facility would have to have them do some other job that wouldn't involve that trainee designation.
Okay. And if you don't have the answer, then I'll be asking Scott. Does that tell us that in this bill somewhere, or is that rules and regs? The 4 months?
It's in, I know it's in rules and regs. I don't believe it's in the statutory language.
Can you look into that, Scott, while we go to some other questions? All right, I think we're going to get clarification here pretty quick.
Thank you.
All right, committee, are there questions? Representative Barker. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kelly, if you would be so kind as to come up, I always enjoy your presentations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Barker.
There's 60,000 RNs in the state.
There's about 56,000. I have the exact numbers, but this comes from the Kansas Board of Nursing.
Ballpark is good.
Yeah.
And about 10,000.
A little over 9,000. Yeah.
LPNs. Mm-hmm. And this bill says that right now, RNs, who are, in my opinion, well-trained, would not be giving the training, but the LPNs would. And I think someone made an analogy, maybe you, where one RPN could supervise 4 LPNs who would then be teaching classes. I don't see how that works.
It doesn't work. Part of the Kansas Nurse Practice Act, and by the way, the same information was presented when it was a different bill, but the same bill number. And Carol Moreland from the Kansas Board of Nursing actually had to send an email to correct all of the information in the testimony. But it requires just one LPN to provide education, to provide some of the skills, and they can't provide the didactic portion of the training. That's in the Nurse Practice Act. But when the LPN is helping with the skills portion, it requires the RN to be there with direct supervision. It says that in our scope of practice, and it says it in the Kansas Nurse Practice Act also. So in no way, shape, or form can an LPN provide education without the RN overseeing it. And likewise, in this bill, it actually has in there where the long-term care facility can help develop for this 40-hour certified aide. And I'm sorry, but it is an individual position, that the long-term care facility and any nurse can develop the education piece for that. Well, any education, like for a CNA, it has to be developed by an RN, not an LPN. An LPN is not allowed to do that. It is an RN.
Okay. Just a follow-up. And I agree. This is poorly drafted, and there's a lot of unanswered questions in it. But this is creating a substand or another level. You're going to have your RNs, you're going to have your LPNs, you're going to have your CNAs, and then you're going to have a certified aide.
And a temporary nurse aide that's already there.
And a temporary nurse aide. You're exactly right. And with the requirement of only 40 hours. So, 2 years ago during the pandemic, I'd probably bow on this because we had rough times.
Right.
But the pandemic's over with. And what's the old saying? Never let a critical situation go go to waste. You have to come in. We've had a pandemic, so let's don't let that go to waste. Let's lower the standards now that it's over with.
Correct.
I don't like this bill at all. It may be fixable. But one more quick question, Madam Chair. Maybe we need to have hospitals train CNAs.
And they do. Hospitals have their own position of a CNA that's different from this.
My hospital administrator said he's not allowed to train CNA. Only the nursing
Who is your hospital administrator?
No, but because they have a lot of...
Right.
It's the Abilene Memorial, but that's what he tells me.
Right.
They are not allowed to train CNAs.
So, yeah, that's a whole other ballgame when we're looking at the hospital CNA, and they have different responsibilities. But I do appreciate that you're bringing up those concerns because, we just briefly looked through because Dustin had put out that TNA where with the abuse, it was open records, but there are more out there. But if this would not have been reported if it weren't for an agency nurse. And that's what's scary because there's probably more out there.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the time.
Okay. And I might add a little bit, Representative Barker, is that the pandemic may be on its way out, but the shortage
Correct.
for care in a nursing home crisis is, we're in the middle of it now. Pandemic, no pandemic, doesn't make any difference. We have nursing homes that are basically being mothballed right now. They don't close them, otherwise they lose their certification. And you heard testimony earlier just from one of individuals being moved into another facility that more than likely is not as close as the one that they were originally in. So we're still in a crisis of a workforce shortage. So Representative Kelly, Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'd like to ask Shannon a question. Being that Medical Lodges is in my district, I've known the Medical Lodges background for many years. And could you reconcile for me what we heard from the opponents to what you see in your facilities across the state, and kind of the one versus the other, and what this position would do, and your thought on the quality of care?
So the position, I think, is not necessarily a position that we would hire within the facility. So you may have a nurse aide trainee, maybe a better terminology for that, somebody who has completed the 40 hours, has been evaluated by a registered nurse, is able to provide specific care within limitations with supervision, working with another certified nurse aide, and then with the expectation that they will attend a course or are attending a course, and if they do not successfully complete that course, that they are no longer working in direct patient care, that they would, obviously we would hope to retain them in some form or fashion in another department. They could work in the kitchen, they could work in housekeeping, that kind of thing. As far as challenges that we see, we have had individuals that we may hire in the housekeeping department, the dietary department, with the goal of putting them through a certified nurse aide training program, trying to get them into programs, but with a lack of RN instructors, we're not able to find courses to put them in. We have willing participants, we just don't have anybody to instruct them. Does that help answer the question? Would you like more feedback, more information?
Do you see a lessening of care that would come out of this position versus what your desire would be?
I don't see a lessening of care because there will always be supervision. Licensed practical nurses in the nursing facilities now routinely, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, holidays, you name it, are already supervising and teaching and training certified nurse aides in our nursing facilities. We also have the licensed practical nurses that may be working in the facility without the presence of a registered nurse. We have federal regulations that require that we have registered nurses for certain periods of time over the course of a day, that our director of nursing has to be a registered nurse, but not in all facilities, and especially in rural facilities, is there an RN present 24 hours a day. Frequently, you have licensed practical nurses that are there supervising the certified nurse aides. Again, there's nothing within the curriculum of the nurse aide training programs that a LPN couldn't teach. Maybe a compromise would be that the RNs do teach the didactic portion of the session, whereas the LPNs are available to do the clinical on-site portion. Would be maybe a good compromise for that, and they're qualified to do that. The LPNs are doing that every day anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Blex.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Kelly, if you might come to Mike, I appreciate it. I would agree with you. This is not a new problem, and I certainly appreciate your passion for health safety. But I've sat on this committee for 6 years, and it bothers me that the Kansas State Nursing Association always appears to bite the hand that feeds them. And, I've seen initially the Kansas State Nurse Association oppose the initial APRN bill. You initially opposed the nurse compact and now you're opposing this. And I see in each one of those situations I just explained, it was in a solution to a problem, a healthcare workplace shortage.
Could I correct that?
We wanted to expand. No, please let me finish.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And like I say, it seems to me that there's an issue with healthcare, but there's also an issue with economic issues. And I'm faced, as well as every legislature up here, with tons of calls all summer long about workplace shortage. We can't get help. We got risk closing them down, particularly the smaller ones. And yet, as a legislature, we just don't necessarily dream up new bills. Most of our bills that we bring forward are in response to a complaint or a situation where a business is in a problem, they're going to shut down. And that's important to particularly myself, rural community, small town. And that's very important, but it seems like there's a continual roadblock and somebody standing in that way whenever we start talking about the economic. And I certainly appreciate your, healthcare safety, and I'm a big supporter of that. But, APRNs, RNs, LPNs, and these aides pay the license fees that fund you to be up here as well as the other salaries. So that's important to me, and I think sometimes it appears to me that you may not be, it's more of a regulatory issue, and I understand that role with you. You have to have that. But it's the same token, your organization should be more proactive in promoting some of these problems, should have been on top of these things and bringing this to industry and saying, hey, let's sit down with a compromise and work on this, and because we got a huge shortage. And
I agree with
Grandma
you.
may be doing a wheelie, and I don't like that, and I don't want it. But at the same token, there's got to be at least somebody there to turn them wheels. And right now, that's what I'm hearing. So I'm going to support this bill, and I think that it's a good deal. I mean, other states has been doing it, surrounding, and I hope people aren't dying. But at the same token, we seem to always have a roadblock in the things that are economically beneficial to our community. And I think that's equally important. I mean, don't get me wrong. I want the safety. So for you to respond, I'd appreciate it.
First of all, when you're talking about opposition to the APRN full practice bill, we have never provided opposition to it. It was actually Kansas Board of Nursing at one time.
Right, Kansas
that
Board of
did.
Nursing.
Yeah, but it wasn't Kansas
Okay, I
State
apologize
Nurses
for that, but
Association.
it is an association that we need to deal with.
Right. And we have always promoted nursing, but we've also promoted care within our state too. And I understand when you're looking at other states and what other states are doing. And I am not saying that an LPN could not assist in education if that's what we're talking about. But we are also talking about that other states have nurse practice acts that are not the same is Kansas. And in Kansas, it does require an RN to have direct supervision. And I would also say our association was created over 110 years ago, and we lobbied up here and got the Nurse Practice Act so we could hold registered nurses to a higher standard to provide a higher standard of care. And that's what we promote. Right now, we do not promote a lesser amount of care. Likewise, we know there's been a shortage, and we're completely empathetic to it because we're facing it with registered nurses leaving their place of employment right now too. But those exist for a reason, and a lot of this existed prior to COVID. It's just been highlighted by COVID now too. It's not because they were exposed to COVID. It's because all of these other issues existed, but now, they're huge now. And it's just, and I put some of that in my written testimony. So I hope it explains it a little bit. And I really appreciate you recognizing my passion because I am very passionate.
As well as I.
Yeah,
Thank you,
I
Madam
know.
Chair.
Thank you so much.
Representative Reese.
Sorry, I'm all caught up with stuff up here. Thank you, Madam Chair. Not sure who to address this question to. Maybe it was still, can Scott come up? Is Scott still here?
Scott Brunner.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott.
Welcome.
I think you can answer this question. This bill is very confusing to me. And correct me, this bill is to help KDADs with regulating the work requirements, the training requirements?
Representative, Madam Chair, Scott Brunner with KDADS. It isn't a bill that we requested. We certainly do talk about the CNA training process and workforce, those kinds of things. We were approached by some of the folks you heard from today that had this idea as a way to expand the teaching workforce for CNAs. It's not something that we requested. It wouldn't really change our regulations around the requirements for training or who can work in a nursing facility or what they're able to do or who signs off on their training. And some of the items, particularly the LPNs being instructors, it's a little different in the way our regulations are written, but that's allowed under the federal guidelines already, under the federal regulation. So we would have that ability, at least to the degree it's in the bill. So, but it isn't something that we necessarily requested, or it isn't something that we requested, but we did work with. It is within the sphere of issues that we work on to make sure there are certified nurse aides to work in long-term care facilities.
It feels like it's adding a layer of something that isn't needed. I mean, it's you from continuing to do what you do now, with the regulations on the CNAs, what their training requirements are and so forth.
That's correct.
It's not going to do anything to that, really.
The one change the bill does make that we don't currently have is to allow a registered nurse to sign off or to be an instructor and sign off on the CNA checklist. Right now, they have to have experience working in long-term care settings. This would allow them to have work experience in an acute care setting with people with chronic illness. That's one change that would expand. By how much, I don't know, but the people who could sign off on a checklist. But other than that, it doesn't change the underlying regulation or our underlying authority. I will say so the current statute talks about unlicensed staff in that 40-hour training, and changing that to certified aide does make it confusing. I don't know that it would make it confusing for us as the regulator, because it says it's a certified aide has 40 hours of training and follows the training requirements issued by the Secretary of KDADS. So we'll require the full 90 hours of training to become a CNA for a certified aide, for an unlicensed staff, for some other designation. That's not going to change. The titling does make it confusing and causes some of that complexity.
So the 40-hour trainer, the trainee, 40 hours trainee, 90 hours are both called certified under this bill?
They do use the word certified, yes.
Yeah, that's a problem. And right now, it talks about the experience in the long-term care, and what was the other one, the critical?
Providing care, it's on, I have the older version of the bill, it's on my page 3.
The chronically ill?
Chronically ill,
Yeah.
elderly or chronically ill in a healthcare setting.
And that would be a hospital? Or
some kind of healthcare setting
hospice
that
or something like?
it could be other. Yeah, we're trying to figure out what that means too. We'll evaluate the requests for the applications to be instructors and kind of look at what that experience is. We've had talked about hospice, state hospitals, some other settings that would meet that general requirement.
And do you know, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, can I ask one more?
We've only got about 10 minutes.
Okay.
And I've got 3 other conferees. Or not conferees, but questions.
Trying to remember my last question now. Oh, do you know of any setting that is currently doing something like this? Anywhere, any healthcare providers, agencies, organizations, I mean, not organizations, but agencies, nursing homes or connected to hospitals or anything that are doing something similar to this already?
I mean, like in other states, because they wouldn't be doing it here. I think we heard there was 4 states. that
Yeah,
do it.
okay. All right.
And they
Thank
can't
you.
use, they can't use LPNs to do the training in Kansas today.
Okay.
If that is answering
Yeah.
your question.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, I have Representative Epley, then Representative Lynn, Representative Haswood, and then Representative Barker. No,
I understand. I just want to make one thing. I got a text from Tara Mays from the Hospital Association to clarify the record. She said, thanks for the question. We can't train CNAs, but want to. Hospitals cannot train them, and that's what I thought. So just to correct the record, I just want to put that to Hospital Association's position. They want to, they can't presently.
All right, Representative Epley.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Kelly, if you just come back one time. I've got, I think, 2 really easy softballs that you can help me out with.
Yes.
So, like in the Senate, it sailed out of their committee, sailed through the floor, 40-0. That's pretty compelling. Now, something may have changed from then to now, and I'd like for you to give us really a brief, quick outline of that. And the other thing I wanted to ask you, that second part, if you can remember after you answer that, is the LPNs. I'm intrigued by that because I work with a lot of LPNs that I think are good, darn good nurses, and I think they would provide a good model for training, for at least part of the training, to increase the number. If you could have LPNs do a lot of the core training and then have the RNs sign off, but still maintain the 90 hours, would that be a compromise on this bill or not? I'd like your opinion. Thank you very much, and I'll listen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Epley, I will say that though it may be a good compromise, it doesn't fall under the Nurse Practice Act, and that's something that I would have to speak to the board of the Kansas Board of Nursing and Carol Moreland on that. I personally think an LPN would do a great job as far as teaching the skills portion to a CNA, but not the classroom piece. But I completely agree. I never want to say that our LPNs are not qualified to do certain things because we need our LPNs. And quite frankly, I do think that they would do an amazing job. So, and then what was the first part? Sorry, Dr.
It's about the vote in the Senate and, what's changed. And, we talked about that in full disclosure, but I really want you to explain that to the group real quick. Thank you.
Yeah, the bill that was put forward when we did provide testimony did not go into this lengthy piece within the bill regarding this 40-hour position. However, it was there. So it was recognized in the Senate that there was a 40-hour position, but it wasn't clarified enough in this. So when we came back and they made changes, this bill reads completely different than the first one. It wasn't vetted, so we could not provide testimony. It was that Monday, the last day to vote on it. I will say, which kind of goes back to the representative's question here too, is that a lot of people had problems with that bill, but they went ahead and moved it forward. And it was actually because those who put out the bill, Leading Age introduced it, is that there was a lack of collaboration on this bill. And it wasn't because of my lack of collaboration. My collaboration was reaching out and trying to provide collaboration, including in a meeting, like a month and a half, 2 months ago, because there was not an understanding between like scopes of registered nurses and LPNs. And I reached out in that meeting and asked about it, and I was told to save it until my testimony. Thank you.
All right, and I hate to cut off the other 2, so perhaps you could visit with folks, because we got another committee coming in behind us, so I apologize. This is what I'm going to say before I close the hearing on this. I'm going to ask all parties involved, realizing that we do have a health work crisis in our nursing homes. Because you have to ask yourself, what happens when a nursing home closes? Where does mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, and uncles go? Where do they go? Very few can really probably function well in your home. So I'm going to ask that you get together between now and next Monday and provide this committee with a compromise. And the reason that is so short, my deadline's Friday of next week in this committee. If you cannot come to a compromise, because I think that there is, as I look through this, I think that there is a compromise in this. One thing I would look at is, unlicensed nurse aide. Fine, take away the word certified. Let's quit playing games with words. I don't care about the words. We went through the crisis with a bunch of TAs. So something has to happen here. And that means both sides to the table, not one side thinking the other side has to come. Because for those of you that know how I operate, I don't like to see that. I would like for you two to come back, meaning both sides, bringing us a bill with the language that you stand up and say, this is what we support, so we can deal with this crisis in our nursing homes. Do what?
I could put it together. I have the
Well,
capability if I had the email.
but both sides, yeah, not one person putting the bill together.
No, everybody.
Right, whoever wants to take and head it up and organize it. Does everyone agree? Am I getting head shakes back there? Awesome. Because we can make this work, because we had discussion through the CanCare Oversight Committee, as well as the Mental Health Modernization Committee, talking about the TAs. And something has to break in this, or we're not going to have any nursing homes to put mom and dad in. We won't. And if you haven't taken care of someone that needs a whole lot of care when they're at home, I can tell you it's rough, mentally, physically, as well as financially. And your emotions are shot. Been there, done that. So if you guys don't come up with an agreed upon decision, this committee will make one for you. But I'd rather it come from the industries. Are we good? All right, committee, we are adjourned till 1:30 tomorrow.